What is up, y'all? Welcome to another episode. We appreciate you guys being here, man. We are just bringing it to you all the time, talking about different types of topics, mostly related to my business, which is the boiler business. But we change it up. We do talk about blue collar, especially in the world now where we're struggling a little bit to find new people coming in and some of the younger generations. So I do try to make these, try to pull people in, and I try to make them as entertaining as possible. I do got my coffee here with me today, which is a little bit different. I just want to let you guys know that I kind of come to you just from a relaxed perspective. I'm nothing too crazy about this. We just talk about topics that are relevant. If you're new to the channel, we appreciate you guys being here, man. Hit the subscribe button. Why not? Doesn't hurt you. You don't have to watch the video, but you're here. So if you're here, hit the subscribe, smash the like button. Helps that algorithm. Really trying to push these videos up, and we do appreciate it. On today's topic, I wanted to discuss with you guys a little bit about hydronic systems, but more specifically talking about expansion tanks. And I'm not going to get into the X's and O's and measurements and things of that nature, but I do want to get into them as a whole and talk about how they affect your system, talk about some of the things you can do, some of the things you can look out for when it comes to your system as well. Because I feel like even though a lot of this stuff is very elementary, it seems that there's a lot of confusion out in the field about what you should or should not be doing, or what you should be looking for, or even how to charge the tanks up when you replace it. So with that being said, hydronic systems are good systems. I have nothing against them. You guys have heard me talk about steam. I'm more of a steam guy, and the only reason that is because a far majority of my jobs have been steam related. So I've been doing steam for, I don't even know how many years now. I'm in the business 16. So for pretty much all of that time, I've been working on steam. But I have worked on hydronic. I would say the split's probably like 80-20 or maybe 70-30. So majority of my time is spent dealing with steam systems. With that being said, I think hydronic systems are a good system, and there could be, in some situations, could be more efficient. You're not operating at the higher temperatures, so you don't have to create the amount of BTU content that you typically would for a steam system. So there's some give, a little bit of play in the amount of BTUs that I can give off to come down with the same result, which is basically heating the apartments. Now, with that being said, in a typical hydronic system, you'll have the boiler plant, which is the thing producing the temperature. Ideally, in a lot of the hydronic systems that we work on, you want to produce about 180 degrees. That's what should be flowing out of the boilers and flowing back and circulating through the building. Again, we work on buildings. I'm not residential, but the same rules apply to residential as they do to industrial. The truth is, it's just about scale. You've heard me talk about this when it comes to steam. The only difference between one setting or one way of doing things as opposed to another way of doing things is scale. So we do things on a larger scale, so it's just a little bit more involved, or the size of the components, the size of the expansion tanks, the size of the venting, as opposed to like a steam system, is going to be a little bit larger and maybe a little bit more involved. Outside of that, the operation is the same. And so it's funny that I brought that up, and I'm going to digress just a little bit, because when I talk to my guys, I try to remind them, once you learn that base or foundation of information, it's really easy to build off of it. But you have to understand all the foundational items first. And this is a foundational video, let's be honest. You know, I'm not getting into sizing and all these other things. We're literally just talking about operation, why it's important, how you should charge up your system, how you should charge up your expansion tank, because these are the things that are important. And these are also the things I see that a lot of the younger guys coming in have a hard time grasping. So with that said, you have your heating plant. Your heating plant's producing your water. You have a feed system, which is like a fill system, similar to a steam, but not really. It's not float type. It's basically operates off pressure. That pressure is a pressure you set when the system is cold. It's another key ingredient in a hydronic system. It's very hard to charge and set up pressures when the system is already hot. You certainly don't want to be setting up pressures when the circulators are going. So one of the things I like to do is as much as I can, because sometimes you go into the job and it's already hot, but I shut my pumps off. I don't want my pumps running, giving me some false readings on what my pressures are, and I want to feed the system cold. And once it finds its pressure, I can adjust my PRV valve, which is my pressure reducing valve. So your feeder, which we call a feeder, is technically called a PRV. It's a pressure reducing valve. So I'm taking the street pressure. So let's say my street pressure is at 50 psi. Again, I'm throwing out random numbers. Let's just say coming from the city or the state or the town, wherever you're from, is 50 psi. I want to take that 50 psi and I'm giving my system what it needs. So if you're in a residential house and you're a 2-floor house, typically you're only about 12 pounds. I don't want to feed the system the 50 pounds that the street is giving me. So that cold feed is going to come into my PRV, and I'm going to adjust my PRV, whether it be at spring out, spring in, based on what I want my system pressure to be. So you have that. Then where your feed system comes in, you also have what would be called an air scoop, because you do get air in the system and we want to eliminate air. Air and hydronics don't work together. So if I have air pockets, the hydronic can't push. Doesn't matter how much pressure you have. So I have to be able to remove that air through the system. So I'll have an air scoop. On top of the air scoop will be an air vent. And typically off that air scoop, a lot of times you'll have that expansion tank. Now on the larger systems, obviously the scoops could be a bit bigger. And now my expansion tanks are bigger. On a small residential built system, you may only have a little small tank. So it's easier to maneuver and easier to pipe. But that is the point of zero pressure drop. That's what we want when we fill the system. You don't want pressure fluctuations, and if you're piping it in a way that it's reading kind of false pressures, then you can have dumping going on at your relief valve, and you could also be charging the system with more than what it needs, and it can cause other problems. So with that, now I'm piping in my expansion tank, but here's the key. Now, in a residential system, since I'm running at about 12 pounds of pressure, typically an extra 50 or extra 15 and an extra 30 are typically going to be pre-charged at about 12 psi. Now, I know that the box says pre-charge, but hear me when I say this. Check the pressure with a pressure gauge first. Don't just take it at face value and say, oh, it's pre-charged at 12 psi and you have 12 psi in the system. Just check it. Can't hurt you. What's the worst thing that happens? It's right on the money. You install it and you're done. Now, in my buildings, we could have anywhere from 30 to 40 psi for the system, depending on the size of the building. Height, width. Remember, for every 2.5 feet of water rise is a pound of pressure. So if you have to do the math, like I said, I didn't want to talk about math, but that's a very simple number that you have to keep in mind. Every 2.5 feet of water rise is a pound of pressure. So if you're looking to do the math on how much pressure you need to get to those top floors, then it give you a pretty good idea of where you want to be. And then, like I said, if I'm at 30, 35 pounds and my expansion tank comes with 12 pounds in it, do you think that my pressure is right in my tank? What's going to happen? If I put 35 psi of water pressure into a tank that has 12 pounds of air pressure, what do you think is going to happen? I'm going to deflate the balloon. Remember, inside of an expansion tank now, it's not like the old days. It has a rubber diaphragm inside. One side's air, one side is water. So as I fill the water side, if my air side is not matching the pressure of my air pressure is not matching the pressure of my water pressure, it can't go against itself. So if I have 12 psi on this side, which is the air side, and I have 30 to 35 pounds of pressure on my water side, what do you think is going to happen? That pressure is going to overtake the other pressure, and you're going to have a tank that doesn't do the job it's supposed to do. What is an expansion tank really supposed to do? The idea of an expansion tank is as water heats up, which is what it does in a heating system, it expands, the volume grows, but the piping doesn't change, right? The piping is what it is. So where is that water going to expand to? It's going to expand into that expansion tank. But I need to allow that pressure pushing, that air pressure pushing against my water pressure to do the job to maintain the pressure in the system as needed. You're always going to have slight fluctuations, a pound or two. You're heating it up, whatever. But what happens is, if you under pressure the tank, or if the tank is bad a lot of times, you're going to come in and find the relief valve popped. Why? Because let's say I have a 30 psi relief valve on my boiler. Well, if my system goes above 30 psi, what do you think is going to happen? That's the whole point of the relief valve. We don't want the expansion of that water happening inside the pipes where it has nowhere to go. It has no escape route. Its escape route is that relief valve. So when you go in and you see the relief valve is leaking, it's doing its job. That's what it's supposed to do. Now, on relief valves, which is a discussion I'll have in another video, but I will talk about it here, is it has a rubber seat, basically. So every time it pops and reseats, it rubs out, right? And then over time, sometimes they don't pop at all. And then a lot of times when it goes to reseat, it doesn't reseat well, and then they can get a little drip going on, and then they need to be replaced. But in avoiding that, we want to set that system up in a proper way. So I want to have whatever pressure I have in my building, whatever I need for my system. Now I got to match that inside my tank. There are some guys that I've heard underdo, like let's say I'm at 35 PSI water pressure for the system. They'll set the tank at 33 PSI. I never agreed with that. I always learned and I stick with matching my pressure. So if I have 35 PSI for my system, I need my tank to be at 35 PSI. They work with each other and it keeps a nice balance in the system. Again, on my system, I might have a 50 PSI relief valve. On a hydronic system in a residential, you're gonna have probably about a 30 PSI. You still have to have a little leeway. I can't have a 35-pound system, or let's use the relief valves that exist. Let's say I had a 30-pound relief valve and I needed 28 pounds of water pressure. It's way too close for comfort. There's a good chance that that relief valve is going to continue to pop. Now, each boiler also comes with a recommendation for what pressure it should be on, but that's another topic for another day. So now I want to charge my tank. This is like the third or fourth time I'm mentioning it. You want to charge your tank to the pressure you have in your system. So if you're in a residential 2-story, you're figuring about 12 PSI, that tank's got to be 12 PSI. If my buildings, if I got 35 pounds of water pressure that I'm dealing with, I got to have 35 pounds in the tank, in the diaphragm. In the old style ways, you used to just have an empty tank and you'd have to drain them manually down to nothing till it was 100% empty. Then you would fill them back up with water, and then what would happen is that air would fill in the void, and then it would use that as the compression against it. In a lot of cases, I believe the old way was a little bit of a better way because you didn't have to continuously replace the tank, but then again, you still have to service it annually, in my opinion. So it's a give and take relationship. With that being said, these things are so freaking vital in the system. And again, I'm talking kind of like more ABCs and 1, 2, 3s as opposed to like the X's and O's, because just having a knowledge of the system itself is really going to help you improve your ability to solve problems when you're on these job sites. Because that's the most important thing. When you go to the job, you're a tech. Your job is to figure out problems, solve them, and get on to the next thing. So knowing the pressure you have that you need for your system, knowing what kind of relief valve you have, checking the piping to make sure that the feed and everything is piped in the right way. We really would like the circulation of the system to be pumping away, but unfortunately, in a lot of cases, they're piped the other way. And in a big, like in a small house, it might be easy to change, but in a large building, it could be a headache. So we deal with what we got. You have different purge points. Again, I'm not going to get into all that, but I really want to talk about expansion and how it works and how important it is to make sure that your system is matching the pressure in that tank, because it's really going to help you. If you go on a job and you have a leaking relief valve, the first thing I'm thinking is, what pressure do I have in the system? So I'll check a gauge, and I bring my own gauge. I have like a hose cock adjustment with a gauge attached to it. Usually the easiest, you find your little hose cock, open it up, check your pressure, see if what's on the boiler is accurate. But it typically probably will be if your relief valve is leaking. If your relief valve is leaking, 90% of the time, it's going to be due to either a poor expansion tank, or if you have the old style expansion tank, you might have to drain it out completely and refill it and start back at scratch. But if you have a diaphragm style, which is the new chances are that diaphragm, what happens is the diaphragm will rupture, or if it's under pressurized, it's going to take the pressure out of it, and you also have a leaking relief valve. But usually when you have relief valve pop, it has something to do with the expansion tank. Doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, but I usually focus my attention over there. I want to check it. How much air do I have? How much air pressure do I have? It's a little bit of a pain in the ass, but the only way to really check that air pressure is to isolate the tank, drain it out, and check it when it doesn't have pressure on the opposite side, the water side. But that's in a whole nother conversation, because you know how many times you go to the job and the guys don't isolate the tank. There's no valve, there's no drain cock. Usually when I install them, I'll install them with a valve, and then we'll put a drain cock by the tank. This way I can close it, drain the tank out if I have to. This is if I have to test it, and if I have to replace the tank. You want to be able to take the water out of it. That's the heaviest part of the job. So I hope you guys got something from this. Again, very low level, but very important. Something I'm still teaching and training my guys. I'm no master at hydronics, but I have a lot of experience in hydronic systems and how they operate. And these are some of the most vital things that I come across. So I appreciate you guys being here, man. And, you know, when I started the video, I was talking to the people that have this is the first time here. For the people that have been here, bro, I really appreciate you guys, man. We're pushing to get to that 1,000. Hopefully getting to 1,000 is going to take a little bit less time than it took to get to 500, but we just try to bring you really good information. And I do it from the bottom of my heart, man. I take time out of my personal day. It's just, this is time I could be building my business, but I really do enjoy having these conversations and teaching and training and talking about the things that I love the most and bringing you as much information as I possibly can. So I appreciate you guys being here as well. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts on what I'm talking about, listen, I like I said, I have no ego. I don't claim to be any type of master. I'm telling you the things that I come across. But if you have a different thought, I'm always willing to learn. So let's talk about it. We could talk about sizing tanks, because that's something that I'm not 100% fluent in, and something I have to still cross-reference. So if you guys have more knowledge than I do, by all means, let's talk about it. Drop a comment below. I always answer the comments. I never leave comments unanswered, and I'm really just looking to grow this channel continuously. So appreciate you guys being here. I hope you have a great day. I hope you keep crushing in your business and in life. Peace.